Hello YouTube, what the heck's going on? Jaylbayt here, coming at you with our our final episode of Stardrive 2, playing as the Draylock Council. Now, when we left, we were kind of at this point, and I'd actually recorded another episode in which we had gone a little bit farther, and towards the end of that episode, I realized that things were starting to get a little bit crazy. Um, I'm not sure. I think we'd gotten our cruise missiles, which are a fantastic technology, and so I just kind of played ahead to see what was in store for you guys, and the simple answer is tedium. Tedium is the simple answer to what was coming up. So. Yeah, I did do another episode here, but it was really getting crazy. So I went ahead and played through the rest of the playthrough, and it took me about 17 hours to basically go through and mop everything up. And this is kind of a mid-stage. We had found the Cordrazine Collective, the Chuck affiliation. We had gone to war with us a couple times, and I think at this point we are in a war with them again. Yeah, you can see two big fleets coming through. But we were able to handle them with relative ease once we had gotten our missile technologies, and so what ended up happening was that it started turning into something that was really tedious. I couldn't stay at peace with anyone. They would always say that I had a planet that they wanted, and that they were going to take it. So it was constantly forcing me into war, which is something that I wanted to avoid as the Draylock Council. I wanted to be able to stay as a neutral kind of trade entity, and then we would send spies out and do that sort of thing. It just wasn't possible. The game right now was not able to provide that level of gameplay for us. So, I mean, you can see here we've gotten quite a bit of income going because we started taxing, and so we were able to start making a lot of money very quickly. We could just buy up fleets, and the only way to win, it seemed, was to go through conquest. I'm not sure here. Yeah, you can see that the polyps are starting to get really upset with us at this point. They say from expansionism and catching our spies, and I would just dump tons of approval into these guys, and they would still be very low on their approval rating. The Cordrazine actually were quite decent with us. If we go in here, I ended up not spying on them because they didn't have any technologies that were decent to us. But you can see, I did a little bit of spying, but I mean, I started building up. You can see up there, Xenopsychology, House of Whispers, Charismatic. I mean, I started building up tons of approval stuff, and even so, it was difficult to keep their tolerance to a point where we could trade and keep them at a peaceful state. So to these guys, basically every time they'd ask for technology, I would just give it to them because they were far away and I didn't want to deal with them. And basically it was bringing them to a point where if they wanted to do war on us, they just could. The Chuck was constantly at war with us. As soon as our peace treaty would end, they would immediately declare war again. And it just started to get really tedious. You could see the polyps were starting to expand like crazy, which is what the polyps do. But because their approval was so low, I knew it was just a matter of time before they started getting crazy. So I made a decision to just wipe out the chuck and see where we were from there. And it was at that point that we was able to go in and kill the masters and get the death ray technology, and I will show you kind of where we ended up in the end game. And there's two technologies I'm going to warn you guys about, because I started to do it. So here we are at the last turn. You can see we wiped out the chuck. We basically invaded and took most of the polyp planets. Our income, you can see we're about 500,000, and they see 529. No, that is 5,291. So we got to the point that I wanted to get to, where we were making tons of income. We had tons of research. Our spies are ridiculous. You can see here we're at this point in our spy game, we can put enough spies to make like 230 intelligence points per turn. Our moles were doing something crazy, like I think they were doing upwards of 10 to 20 mole progress per turn because of all the planets with the Xeno Intelligence Agency. So we got to where we wanted to be originally, but we had to conquer the galaxy to do that, and that really ticked me off. And going through and destroying these races was an exercise in tedium, let me tell you, especially with the polyps, because I would conquer a planet, go somewhere, they would send someone behind me to conquer it. So I ended up having to have like 4 fleets floating around in order to finally wipe them out. I had to have, because of all the wormholes, I had to have fleets stationed at both ends of the wormholes to make sure that none were slipping through. I had to have lookout stations in the null space here to make sure no fleets were coming through. Because the polyps had actually developed enough of an anti-spy network that I couldn't just send spies in there to hack their sensors and find out where they were all the time. Eventually I did, and I had enough of, you can see we're up to 65 spies, where I could just spam out spies and for one turn just toss them in there so that I could hack their sensors and see where they were. But it was just tedious, and in my mind, tedious is not good. It's not a good video make. Because it's basically the same thing over and over again. The other thing that made it just awful is that using the auto feature is ridiculously, unless your numbers and your tech level are vastly superior, if you try to auto a battle, you'll lose ships, you'll take tons of damage that you shouldn't. Even if you have a bunch of tech. Like I said, we kind of focused on missiles for a while, where we have a lot of range, where we could just obliterate the enemy from range before they got to us. Even with that, you would take tons of losses. And so I had to fight almost every battle, and it was just sickening. And the ground game, if you try to auto that, it's dumb. So I had a ground force with like 6 mechs and 10 regular infantry, and I would send them down to a planet, and it'd be against like 1 polyp ground troop, 1, and I would hit auto and I would lose like 3 guys versus that 1 guy, even though I had superiorly overwhelming odds. Just really, really not cool. So let me show you some of my, forgive me, my voice is a little off. I've kind of been recovering from sick, which is why I haven't been, you haven't seen much recording here recently. So if we look at the shipyard, there's a couple of things that I ended up doing. I'd made this Rainmaker using the cruise missiles. Cruise missiles are phenomenal. They're fast. They do a decent amount of damage. And you can really stock them up. I mean, these things are awesome. The Rainmaker was one of the best ships I had. I built a bunch of them, and I could just swarm tons of boats, and I could really take out a lot of stuff. Aside from that, we kept kind of the Peregrine, which was our mass driver thing, but I never really built more of them because I'd gotten a battleship. But the Rainmaker was fantastic. I also built a couple of upgrades. Neurotoxin bombs, let me tell you, if you guys are looking to conquer the galaxy and take worlds, but don't want to deal with ground combat, neurotoxin bombs are the way to go. They do not do damage to buildings. They only do damage to civilians and organics. So you can just drop 1 billion of these things and conquer the planet when they have like maybe 1 ground troop left and take it over, and it's awesome. Or, and here's what's one thing that I think is cool about the game. You can wipe the planet out and it'll say colony destroyed, and then you can recolonize it and the buildings will still be there because you never actually destroyed them when you bombarded the planet into oblivion. You just killed all the people. So basically think kind of like Miranda from Firefly. Everybody's dead, but all the structures and buildings are still there. So I made those is our second this. I also had to make a second swatter because the polyps use huge swarm ships full of fighters, and their fleets are massive. So these things are just chock full of flat cannons, and I never really found anything better than flat cannons. You've got Vulcan cannons, but I don't know. I just never really used them, mostly because they're weak against shields, and by this point, the fighters have shields, so Vulcan cannons weren't doing good. The point defense lasers are just too much power draw. Although we got better power technologies, it's fine. We also picked up the ordnance fabricators, so with good power and these ordnance fabricators, you can shoot forever. Same thing with our missiles. So we upgraded to the battleships. I tried a thing with photon torpedoes. I never really liked torpedoes. They were slow. They said they were supposed to do a lot of damage, but I never saw that happening. Their range was kind of garbage, so I just let that go. So I made this, and you can see these are swarm missiles. Guys, until they fix something, never use swarm missiles, or there's another technology I want to talk to you guys about. Oh, I can't even show you because there's a bug here at the end where you can't see your research stuff. It's really annoying. Buggy is the word I would use to describe the game right now, the end game especially. It's like, so there's swarm missiles, which is what I built the big bow out of. And these sound very cool because what happens is they fly out, and if they're ever jammed or start taking fire or whatever, they explode into tiny little swarm missiles. And they go and they attack. So they're very good against point defense and jamming. The problem is, for whatever reason, it's swarm missiles, and then there's a point defense technology that does a similar thing and it's very good against fighters. They go out a little ways and they explode and then just shoot the incoming missiles and fighters with flak. Here's the problem. the game will just go down to a crawl. Like you don't have enough memory or you don't have enough RAM. You know, like you're trying to play a game that's meant for 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 5 gigahertz processor on a 1 gigahertz processor with 4 gigs of RAM. That's how bad it gets. I mean, it's disgusting. But when you look at your computer resources, you're not using any of that type of capacity. I mean, I was barely using hardly any extra RAM or CPU. So it's something in the game design, something in the code that just bogs things down because there's so many entities, I think, on the screen with these big swarm stuff, these swarm particles. I don't know. It was unplayable, absolutely disgusting. In the future, I would probably do the same type of ship, but I would use the cruise missiles, because the cruise missiles are fantastic. I love them. They're long range, they're guided, and they're fast. So even if they have trouble with some anti-missile stuff, ECM or point defense, you can usually send enough of them, and they're fast enough that they can't block them all. So this is a good design for cruise missiles. Never use swarm missiles until they fix it. And I did create a fighter-based ship. Now this was pretty good. It was cheap. The fighters did okay. I had fighter shields, and so this actually was quite a decent ship. And then a couple of cruise missiles up front. The other thing that was good about these, and I would take at least a couple of these in every fleet, is that when you launch these swarms of fighters, the best defense against other fighters is fighters that I found. So you would just have these swarms of fighters, and whenever they would send their fighters in, you just kind of send them into whichever area they were attacking, and they would go through and kill them all. And so that worked out very well. And then we had this. This was just a giant battleship full of mass drivers. And the reason I did this was because those masters coming through the wormhole were really pissing me off. They were really starting to bug me. And so I went with mass drivers because they do the same amount of damage against shields. And what I found is that with the masters, once you penetrate their shields, they're done. You just destroy them. I mean, they have like very little in the way of defensive anything under their shields. So mass drivers are very good against the masters. So that's why I call them Master Blaster. And so I built a big fleet of this and took them to the master wormhole, went through and killed the master of Orion 2. It's this giant, like bigger than Titan class ship with a ridiculous amount of shielding, canopy shield, and it took about 10, I think I had 10 of these battleships, these Master Blaster battleships, and 2 of these phaser Titan class ships. When I went to Titan, I was worried about the particle thing being more than just swarm missiles. It's just any particles. So I switched to phaser fire. And I made this ship. Hello, phasers. Now, I learned an important lesson here. You cannot have this many phasers on a Titan ship. They just won't fire. You don't have enough, even though it says that, you know, if you do some calculations and you look here, it says seconds to empty is infinite. It lies to you. There are too many phasers with too much draw for this to power them all. It just can't be done. So this says you require like 2,000. So see 194.0 down here. This needs to get fixed too. But basically almost 2,000 power drain. And I have 2,000 power generation. So this is not accurate, because what you need is you need enough power generation and enough capacitance for every phaser to fire, and the phasers draw 160. Okay, and so I have 100. It's close to 100 phasers on here, so that's 16,000 energy, and we're not even close to that. So you have to have, the reason you have to have the same amount of capacitance that you need is because when the phasers are firing, your energy is not constantly doing what they need to, it's not pulling from the energy, your energy generation. It's pulling from your power storage. You have to have enough power storage for these things to fire continuously for 5 seconds, because it ticks. This 160 power usage is per second, and these things fire for 5 seconds. So you're looking at a lot more power drain. It's not just the 16,000 that you see, it's 16,000 per second. And so that's why you need to have enough power generation to fill your capacitor each second, so that you have enough power capacitor each second for however many phasers you need per second, which is 160. So when you look at this and you see 160 power drain, and later on with these death rays, they have 625 power drain. You need that much capacitance and power generation. So I redesigned this, and you can see it's full of power capacitors, full of reactors, and this powers about, I think it was like 36, maybe 40 phasers. I can tell you 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, 10, 15 on each side, so there's 30 on each side. 7, 10, 13, 15. Yeah, so 45. I was able to get 45 phasers on this one Titan. And that did a lot of damage. These phasers do pretty good damage, especially up close. And with, where is it? These high energy focuses, in each quadrant, you can make it so that they do 200% damage at their max range. So this falls down to 250. It actually goes up to back up to 500, I think, or 7. It might go all the way back up to 750. But so this gives them quite a bit of good damage, even at their max range. And so this was a fantastic ship, and I used these Titans plus the Master Blasters to go in and kill the Master Orion, which is a beast. If you guys are playing this or ever get this game and do play, that is kind of a fun fight, although it is very difficult. Make sure you go prepared, because the shield on that mother is a canopy shield, which means it protects other ships that are with it, and it is a big shield. You have to break through a lot of shield points to get that buddy down. But when you do it, you get these death rays, and they're just ridiculous. They have no dissipation over range. They do, when they're overloaded, they do 2,500 damage. They fire every 4 seconds. These things are nice. But you see, I had to put in a lot of power and a lot of capacitance even for these 10 death rays. But they did a lot of damage. And this is what I used to eventually go through and kill the polyps. So, those were my ships. I was able to get through it all. It took forever though, and so that's why I kind of went through, played through, finished it out. I wanted to finish it out and show you that we could be successful as the Draylock Council. It just took us converting over into a military front, and I mean we stopped doing trade. The reason this is so high is not so much that we had trade and we were doing mercantile things. It's that our taxes are up to like 50% because we didn't need production. And we just have so many planets producing that we can make a lot of money. So my final thoughts right now. The game right now to me is incomplete. And it's unfortunate because I enjoy a lot of things about this game, but it needs a lot more polish. This feels like a game just coming out of alpha into a beta stage. And if you see here, well, I have this huge, ridiculously huge fleet, because the Quarter never actually went to war with us. But when you kill the master thing, it's like, what do you want to do? Do you want to just be peaceful or whatever? But there seems to be only one victory condition, and that is to conquer the galaxy through force. So that's what I did. So if we go here, we auto this because we have ridiculously overwhelming odds. We'll just kill this planet. See, I've only got 2 mechs left out of like a ton of ground forces because I'd auto and I'd lose so many dudes. So we're going to go here. We're going to tactical nuke a little bit to get the shield down. There you go. And then we'll just neurotoxin the crap out of this until the population is 0. Boom. There'll be very few more than lost such a vain species of idiots as the Quarters need. So long, guys. There could be only one. That's right, viewers. The game is now complete. The masters are dead. The competition eliminated, and new masters have now arisen. What? You want more than this? A space cake or something? Viewers, if there's one thing that I've learned in my untold eons of existence, is that life is about the journey, not the destination. It is also about rigging a sadistic game of intergalactic politics and warfare for one's own amusement. Keep that in mind, and maybe one day you too can be an immortal and sadistic robot playing God with entire civilizations. Until then, this has been TuneIn. And that's it. That's all you get for basically winning the game. No cinematics, no... there's no sense of accomplishment, really, at the end of the game. There's no real end game thing. I think there should be a thing at the end of the game to let you know that you're at the end of the game, and B, tell you that you can't play anymore because you've won. I can keep doing stuff even though there's no one else in the galaxy. I could go through and colonize all these planets if I so wish and boost them to Gaia level and make the galaxy a wonderful, wonderful place, only who cares? There's no point to it now. It's very anticlimactic. That's why I feel like it's only partly finished. Like there's still more that needs to go into the game. The sciences, you get this future hole, and you can start doing some of them, and then it bugs out, and you start losing the ability to do future researches. And you can't even see the stuff over there if you get one of these things down here. It's just towards the end of the game it gets really buggy, and that kind of bugs me. I had words. Because I really like a lot of the aspects of this game, but I think there's a lot more that needs to happen with it. One, and I guess we'll go through here and um, talk a little bit about kind of the things I'd like to see. One, the diplomacy needs to be much improved. Okay, I like the idea of tolerance. I think that's a cool concept. Um, because you can't just spam out trade agreements and spam out trading technologies to get all the technologies from someone else right off the bat. I like the idea of tolerance, that you have to wait, you have to let relations naturally and organically improve. I do not like the fact that anybody can just go to war with you for no reason, and that there's no way to avert that. I also don't like that there's no, right now, it seems to be no way to win diplomatically. You can't just stay neutral, get all the money that you know, crazy amounts of money, and then buy off the galaxy and win that way. I think that should definitely be a thing. I heard that there might be a thing where you can get people to join a republic or something and unify the galaxy, but I couldn't do it. Even with Quarterzine maxed out in their approval and me with a military to rival creation itself, the Quarterzine didn't give me any options to like bring them into the fold. So that needs work. Right now, the only win condition is military, and you saw it's a little bit lackluster at the end. I think there should be a science where you get to a point where you can just win. You know, in Master of Orion 2 there wasn't, but there was the Stellar Converter, I think it was, which literally allowed you just to blow up planets when you got there. And that's kind of an I win technology, something you could threaten the galaxy with science, and people just like, okay, you know, we're not going to mess with you ever again. Let me see, where is it? Okay, cluster cannons. This is the other one. So cluster cannons and swarm missiles are two technologies you just cannot use, or they'll bog your game down and you will not be able to stand it. A battle will take an hour to do because it's just puttering along at 2 frames a second. So yeah, it definitely needs more win conditions, something other than just conquest. And then when you win, there needs to be something a little bit better than just GNN saying you win, congratulations, now here you go. The biggest thing, I think, is the whole diplomacy thing, and especially with races saying that, hey, I know this is your home system, and I know that's one of your planets in your home system, but we think that should be ours. In what reality would that ever happen? You know, that would be like China, who never existed in North America, saying, hey, we believe that Wisconsin should be ours. You know, we have a legal right to it, and so we think it should be ours. It's in our sphere of influence. What? No, it just doesn't happen. In fact, I'm pretty sure that China wouldn't even fathom thinking that Wisconsin is rightfully theirs ever. So that's a little goofy. What else? Oh, so the polyps. You saw the polyps expand all the way down here and all the way up here. I mean, basically, this entire galactic arm was theirs. And like every star system in there had a planet that they had colonized. Until I destroyed them. We don't need that. Until I destroyed them, expansionism, negative 40% because of my expansionism, remained. Even when I was here and I didn't expand for eons, expansionism, negative 40, remained. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. If you're going to expand into half the galaxy, you cannot have a problem with me not expanding. So that's something that needs to be. Everything in this diplomacy thing needs tweaks. The spying was cool, but towards the end of the game, it gets really minimally effective. You can pump a ton of them out, put them in there, and do your little operations. But, I mean, you can get it to the point where you do 500 intelligence points per turn. So you can just put chunks and tons of moles. But they don't, the moles don't progress fast enough at the higher levels to ever steal anything. Because you need like 10,000 and they're only producing like 5 per mole per turn. Like the highest I got them, I think, was 10 because I had a bunch of those intelligence agencies built. But even that would take forever. When I was researching the 10,000 research point things, I had like 300 to 500 research going. So that it wasn't forever. So that needs to be a little bit different. Also, I don't like that it's random. If you have a mole in someone's place, you should be able to target a technology for them to steal and say, hey, go steal that. And I think this progress should be instead of just beakers, it should be percentage. So each mole at base will do 1% of a targeted research per turn. So if you have one mole with no buffs, he's going to get it in 100 turns. That seems reasonable to me. Okay, because we go through turns pretty crazy. I think I went through, by the end, about 1,000 turns. So even 100 turns is slow. But then you boost them up with those things and whatnot, and then you're stealing research, at a decent rate, and it doesn't rely on the research points being out of your ability to do it. If they have the technology, it is not that hard to steal the data. You put it on a thumb drive and you leave, right? You break it in one place, you put the data on a thumb drive and you leave. It shouldn't be this difficult. So spying needs to be a little bit better. It's not telling me how much they produce, but it's just too slow. The mole progress is too slow. I mean, they have the option for the smash and grab, but if your ground troops are subpar at all, you'll never succeed at smash and grab, because even from even from turn 20, if you try and do a smash and grab, they have like mechs and stuff in there that you have to get past. I don't know why they have mechs, but they have mechs. They don't even have the technology for mechs, but there's mechs in the laboratories for a smash and grab. So definitely a lot of balancing needs to go into the game. A lot of things that need to make more sense. And then, God, the pirates and the masters only targeting you is garbage. Pirates and the masters, where the masters show up, needs to be totally random, and they need to go after whoever's closest. Throughout the game, I would constantly get the masters popping up, and they would only come attack me. They would only pop up in this area, and they would only attack me. That is not, especially for like a normal difficulty game, that makes no sense. Why are the masters only pissed off at me? Why do they care? They seem to be a race of just destroy everything in this other dimension, so why aren't they killing the polyps? Why aren't they killing the Volfar? They would only attack me, and so that, I think, is imbalanced and doesn't make sense. Same thing with the pirates. The pirates you'll find all over the place, but they'll only attack you. So I think that's a little bit crazy. It adds extra elements of difficulty to something that I think was already annoying enough when we didn't want to go to war and we had to go to war with these people. We were constantly in war with the Volfar, the Chuck, the Opterus, and then eventually the Polyps. The only one I stayed away from war was the Chordrine. That's because they were far away, and I would just give them everything that they asked for. Always. To try and keep their tolerance up. And I was far away enough from them that they didn't have any claim on any of my planets up here. Because I didn't colonize any of this stuff. I just blew it up. So, yeah, I like where the game is going. I think it can be really fun. It could be a very fantastic game. But right now, because of the bugs, because of some of the things that just don't make sense, because of the lack of win conditions, I'm going to put this on the shelf for a bit. Hopefully I've already seen some people put out some mods to fix some of the ground troop bugs. And hopefully people either mod it or Zero himself goes through and fixes some of this and adds some more elements to the game to give it some more depth. Because right now it feels very shallow. I think if that happens, this game could be absolutely fantastic. It could rank up there with Master of Orion 2. Because there's elements added to it that I really like. But it's so frustrating at times that I really just don't want to play it again. And so that's kind of why I decided to end the Let's Play. Go through, finish it out, see exactly what it was going to take to complete the game and win the game. But as you saw, it was just tedium and it was just unfulfilling. So until we get something a little bit better out of this game, I'm going to go ahead and put it on the shelf. And so my Let's Plays coming up that I'd like to do, I'd really like to do Gal Civ 3. It looks phenomenal. And so that's something that once that comes out into a release, I would like to do a Let's Play of. Until then, I may get into like Kerbal Space Program, because it looks fun. 1.0 just came out, which typically when a 1.0 releases, that means that the developers think it's at a place where it is finished and polished enough to be sold to the public with minimal or no bugs. And Kerbal Space Program has been developing for quite some time. I'm also looking at Factorio, because Factorio is just about to the point where they're going to release it on Steam. They've got a good solid build for Steam, a Steam release. And I love Factorio. If you've never played Factorio, you should play it. I think they have a demo, so demo it. It's just fun. It's just, you will put many hours into it and have a blast doing it. Did I ever explore this? I don't know. Oh yeah, that's this other race. So that's going to be it from me. I enjoyed parts of the game, but on the whole, especially in the end game, I really was displeased with it. So hopefully that's helpful for you guys. If you want to try a military encounter, that could probably be more fulfilling, because right now that's what the game is designed for. It is designed for a military-based thing. So go ahead and get out there and wreck stuff and see how the game plays for you. But as the Draylocks, I was very unsatisfied because we couldn't ultimately accomplish what we wanted to, which was to stay neutral, make a shite ton of money, and then just spy on everybody and steal their technologies. Or, implant propagandas to help keep them from coming to war, or just so that everybody liked us. In Gal Civ 3, there's an influence victory condition, where basically you just send out your Taco Bells and your gaps, and the quality of life that you offer other people and their planets forces them to defect to you, and you win just because they think you're a cool place to be. And eventually the whole galaxy is just like, yeah, let's just, these guys are the coolest. And it's all based on economy, merchants, and influence. Like I would assume even some spy propaganda type of stuff. And that's what I was hoping for with the Draylock Council, but there's no condition for it in this game yet. I want to say yet because I hope it gets fixed later. I hope it gets added. Because then this could really be a fantastic top shelf game. But right now it needs a lot of work. So that's going to do it for me. Feel free to leave a comment. Tell me what you think. If you've been playing along, tell me if you share some of my opinions. You have different opinions, let me know. I've really enjoyed doing the playthrough for you guys, if not the playthrough itself. And I hope to do more. If there's something you'd like to see specifically, a playthrough of something else, or maybe you just want to see this some more, I would not be opposed to at least doing the first maybe 300 turns on a different race, doing a different thing like being militaristic, whatever, of this as well. But I'm never going to do a full playthrough because the ending is just tedious. And it would be boring. It would be boring for you guys to watch. And I won't do it. So, let me know. Leave me a comment. And we'll go from there. So, until then, though, I've been Jaylbayt. And you guys, live free, game hard.